What is up, my sweet and precious loves? Welcome back to another episode of God is a Game Dev. Sorry that I'm a week late, but I wanted to wait till today so that I could announce the winners of the Spacesuit Gym $20 competition. I'll do that at the end of the video, but if you're here right now, you're probably wondering what the title of this video is about. How do you get really cheap, really nice 3D models? Well, here's the answer. You make them yourself. Boom, get clickbaited. No, seriously, I have been learning 3D modeling ever since I rolled 3D modeling on the Game Dev Roulette Challenge a few videos back, and I've been having the best time. I hated the idea of 3D modeling, and I think what happened was the guys who made the courses that I initially took to learn programming and stuff like that, they also had a set of courses to learn 3D modeling, and I just didn't enjoy those classes. They were making like modular environments and castles and stuff, but they were moving at such a slow pace that I just hated it. I thought it was the most boring thing ever. Then I hopped on YouTube, started watching other content creators teach Blender and 3D modeling and tips and topology and things like that. And I ended up having a really good time making my own stuff. But there are some things that I need to tell you if you're a beginner game dev, or if you're a programmer looking to jump to 3D modeling, or if you're just a regular person looking to jump into 3D modeling. There's some stuff you need to understand before you get into it. One of the most important things is what application is the 3D model going to be used for, because there's a giant difference between making super high detailed, really well textured 3D models, if you're going to be using them for things like Amazon to show off a product, or if you're going to get into like making movies or special effects and CGI and things like that, versus making 3D models to turn into game assets. If you have a game asset that's super high detailed and high poly, there's a limit to how much really super detailed high poly stuff you can have in a game before it starts messing with your frame rate if you don't know what you're doing. I'll show you in this video. One of the characters that I made ended up being super expensive. Let me show you some stuff I've been working on. This is Rip It. You guys recognize him from Spacesuit Gym, the 2D version, and I had to make him in 3D. So this is my very first attempt. I remade this same model like 6 or 7 times. And every time I did it, I changed a little something because I made a lot of mistakes along the way. As you fail forward. So by the 7th iteration of this guy, after doing this for a couple weeks, I'm able to go in and fix mistakes that I made. But in the beginning, I didn't really understand how, and it wasn't until I got on YouTube and started watching other 3D modelers and understanding their workflow and understanding how they deal with issues with topology that I was able to go back and change things myself. That's something you gain with experience. So just something to keep in mind. Now this guy here, I actually rigged with an armature, which is what you see on the screen. You have bones, and those bones influence certain areas of the mesh, and using those bones, I can now make animations. It ended up okay, but it wasn't good enough in my opinion. So I had to keep making it. And eventually I landed on this. This was the most I was able to clean up the Son of Death for this iteration. I also was able to rig the armature to the arms and the face, make his face move, make him angry, his arms move. And then I moved on to this next character, which was what I called the Sentinel. And you can see the way that he's animated inside a Spacesuit Gym, and I wanted to kind of give him like some more exciting features. Here's a sneak peek at what it kind of ended up looking like later on down the line, but we'll talk about why this was bad. Here was my issue, right? I remade this model as well 6 or 7 times. Some things that I didn't think about until later, right? This is just a segment of one of his arms, and the tutorial that I was following on how to make like Dr. Roboto style arms or whatever wasn't really conscious of the polygon count. They didn't really care because he was building it to render it out in like a cinematic scene and have it be super high detailed, right? But I'm building this for a video game, and what I didn't realize is that this one little segment right here has 272 triangles, right? Every arm on this robot, it had 4 arms, had 40 segments. So that's 272 times 40, and then whatever that number is times 4 for 4 arms. And you end up with 200,000 or 300,000 triangles on it, which ended up crazy. You could have 10 to 20 enemies on the screen at any time, right? But if I have 10 to 20 enemies that are all 300,000 triangles, my frame rate's gonna be garbage. Another thing that was cool that I got to learn while doing this is something called inverse kinematics, automated way of chaining the arm together, right? So essentially I could put a target on the fist, and if I move the fist, it moves the rest of the arm. Wherever I move the fist, it figures out that information for me. So this is just me playing with different shapes, trying to get the triangle count down, and I realize that it's gonna be way too high. So exactly right here, I start over with making segments that have less triangles. So I went from a segment with 300 triangles and I got one down to 84. And then I also decided, instead of having 40 segments all the way up the arm, I'll make it 20, I'll make it shorter, and you can see kind of where this was going. So I'll speed through this. You see I have, I think, 20 segments tall. And now with that same inverse kinematic principle I was telling you, as I move one target, the rest of the arm segments follow. And I can change the rotation, and that really helps when you're trying to animate it instead of going segment by segment, like pick a segment, move it, pick the next segment, move it, pick the next segment, move it. Like that takes forever. So here's me working on a simplified claw. I have the face the way that I want it to. I also learned in Blender how to make something called emissive textures. So all of this area in the center of the X of the eye or whatever is white, and that is gonna glow inside the game because I used something called emission, which you'll see in a second. Now, one thing I will tell you, if you try to do this or recreate this, is that the inverse kinematics that you get in Blender, it might be some type of setting or something that I did wrong, but it's not the same inside of Unity. So when I moved this model into Unity, I didn't have those IK controllers or those IK targets. They weren't working the same. And Unity has its own inverse kinematics package, which does work well with chains and stuff, but it wasn't as good as the IK resolvers that I had in Blender. So I felt like I could animate it better in Blender, but then when I was trying to take the animations over into Unity, everything was breaking and acting weird. So I ended up having to use the inverse kinematics package inside Unity to try to animate it better instead of just taking this animation, because I wasn't very happy with it. Like, it looks good, but it's not anything to write home about. And now, after going into Unity and meticulously animating it and fighting with the IK resolvers, I ended up with this, which I'm super satisfied with. You can see Jim, this rock that Jim is standing on was made by my editor Fist, and he made it all rusty and rock-like. But boom, we have a Sentinel, and the Sentinel looks amazing. That's my intention, is to keep it huge. So as it's flying at you in Jim, it's just gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. And sometimes it'll look at you, sometimes it'll, you know, hone in on you and really creep you out. But one of the cool things about this is, because I fought so hard with the inverse kinematic resolvers, you'll see the hands are like twitchy. A bunch of the claws twitch for like no reason, right? And that's actually not from something that I did when I was animating them. That was the resolvers trying to figure stuff out and just ending up kind of distorted and twitchy on their own. And it really gives you this like creepy vibe, like it's just gonna grab you at any time. I don't know, I really had a good time with it. I also wanna show you guys a bunch of other stuff that I modeled just because I was having a good time 3D modeling. So this right here is actually a picture of our living room wall at home. My wife decorated a bunch of this stuff in the house. She got these like wicker basket mirrors and added these weird creepy little branches to them, and then we stapled bats all over the wall. But I wanted to start making cool little decor pieces for video games, especially for other games that we play where we want to bring them in. Boom, I recreated the bat wall, and you can see all of these little bats are rigged with their own armatures so that I could animate them however I wanted. And that was pretty sweet, pretty fun little project. Now this one I was super proud of, right? I really wanted to try my shot at like modeling out a car. So first off, which car to pick? Well, this was my dad's second car. He used to take me out to the streets to do like donuts and stuff in this car when I was very young. We'll just say that. I was very young, very scared, but I wanted to try my hand at modeling his car, especially because his birthday just passed recently. So this was what I managed to do. I'm happy with it. The topology is okay. It's not great. I'm still learning. You can see the wireframe. There's a couple areas that could definitely be cleaned up, and there's a couple areas that I probably subdivided way too many times. But I had a really good time making this, just the front part of the car. It's gonna take me a long time to finish because this is really hard to do, modeling in this way, but you can see just how butter it is. Butter. It looks good. I like it. I'm happy with it. I'm hoping to finish that sometime and maybe like find somebody who does 3D printing and get him a little printed version of his old car because, you know, obviously he no longer has it anymore. This was a lot of fun and I impressed myself with this one because not easy to do. This was the first version of that squid that you saw earlier and he ended up being 106,000 triangles. This one still has arm segments that are 40 long and every segment is a little bit more low poly than the new ones that I have. However, it just wasn't great. I also wasn't happy with the middle of the face and the way that I had the eye set here because it was just kind of inset. And I really like the new eye better where it's like almost like an ornamental piece that got stuck onto the outside of the circle. I thought that just visually looked a lot better. So this guy got scrapped, or maybe I'll just save him and fix him up later and do a different design. And just to compare, the actual version that is inside Spacesuit Gym right now, the one that you just saw inside the game, this entire thing is only 8,400 triangles versus 110. So way more performant, and it's not a lot of stress on anything to have 20 of these inside the scene at the same time, which is great, which is what I wanted. So we did much better this time around. This one you did not get to see, but this was a version that I made that is 150,000 triangles. And I really liked the segments on the arms better here because I put more detail into them. But as I said, the more detail that you put into one segment, you multiply that by 40 and it becomes crazy, which is what happened here. It kind of got a little bit out of control. This looks great. If I wanted this to be a boss or a cutscene or something like that, I would use this model, but I wouldn't use this model if there was going to be more than one of them in the scene at a time because it's just way too expensive. Now, this is kind of where I segmented and took a break to make models for other games that we play that allow you to bring models into those games because I really wanted to make custom stuff for our avatars, for me and Nanu's avatars. So these are some horns that I made her as practice. Excuse the vulgarity, but they're very low poly and they came out excellent. Let me show you what they actually ended up looking like in game. They look like this and they look amazing. It was my first set, and I made a display stand so that we could sell those horns to other players and have something to put them on. So cute little display stand, and this was the low poly version. The high poly version's a lot smoother. Used the high poly version to bake this exact design onto the low poly version and save some texture memory. Here's another set of horns that I made for a demon character for another game. And we can hide the face orientation so you can see the detail a little bit better. These came out great as well. And the fun thing, well, not fun thing, is all these little wire wraps that you see here were from real life experience that we had when we started to make wire wrap jewelry with copper and silver and things like that. And in Blender, having to wrap Bezier curves around objects is a huge pain in the ass. So like doing this was very, very tedious, but the end result I felt was very, very good. And this is what it ended up looking like on my character in the game. I really liked it. We were also thinking about making trinkets and furniture and models and stuff like that for that other game to sell on the marketplace. So I started working on a trinket that I could add as like an attachment to something, or maybe like an embellishment for a set of horns. And I made this, which was a lot of fun. Kind of simple, pretty good topology all the way around. You can see I kept it kind of low key. All in all, this whole thing, 10K triangles, which can be baked onto a low poly mesh and brought down if I wanted to. But those same horns that you just saw before, I decided to rework those, and boom, now they came out like this. So instead of having that cross in the middle, I put this accent piece in the middle, and they came out looking phenomenally good. I was super happy with that. And if I put like a matte cap on this, you can see the potential for the model itself. Looks really, really sexy in my opinion. And inside the game, that ended up looking like this, which I was very happy with. Check that out. I was like stoked when I saw that in the game. All right, so now it's time to announce the winners of the Spacesuit Gym $20 competition. I'm gonna give you top 5. There were a lot of entries. Thank you guys so much for playing. The top scores were very high up there and very close together, except for the #1 spot, which blew everybody away by like 4,000 points. But anyway, 5th place, Frosty. 4th place, Rat King Mikey. 3rd place, Siloon. What's up, Heather? 2nd place, Slay for Pay, whoever that is, I don't know who you are. And then first place was my boy Stewie, who decided to just go in there and wreck everybody with a grand total of 25,420 points. So good job, Stewie. I owe you $20. I haven't given it to him yet. And to be honest, there might be a little twist to that $20 package just because Stewie won. I might make him work for a little bit, but you're gonna see what happens in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Leave me some comments, leave me some questions. I love talking to you guys. And also check out the link to the Discord. It's in the description below. Feel free to join and come hang out if we're not already friends on Discord. All right, so see you next time. Peace.